When my sister Dorothy called my boyfriend crying hysterically, telling him she had just seen me going into a motel room with two men, I was actually sitting in a hospital waiting room. My phone was off because I was waiting for my mother to come out of surgery. I had no idea that while I was there, terrified and praying my mother would be okay, my own sister was trying to destroy my relationship with the man I loved. She wanted him for herself, had wanted him from the moment she met him, and she thought if she could convince him I was cheating, he would leave me and turn to her for comfort. But her plan didn't work, and when we found out what she did, we gave her a revenge she never saw coming. My name is Nanny. I'm 71 years old now, and this is the story of how my sister Dorothy tried to steal my boyfriend 45 years ago when we were both in our 20s. How she fabricated the cruelest lie imaginable, how she almost succeeded in destroying everything, and how my boyfriend and I exposed her betrayal in the most devastating way possible. I was 26 years old and had been dating James for about a year and a half. We had met at a friend's party. I was working as a secretary at a law firm. James was working construction, saving money to eventually start his own business. He was handsome, hardworking, kind. He had this smile that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. We fell in love fast. Within 6 months, we were talking about getting engaged, about getting married, about building a life together. I thought I had found the one. My sister Dorothy was 2 years younger than me, 24 at the time. We had always been close growing up, shared a bedroom until I moved out, told each other everything. She was my best friend, or so I thought. Dorothy was beautiful, always had been. Long blonde hair, blue eyes, the kind of figure that made men stop and stare. She never had trouble getting dates, but she had trouble keeping relationships. She would date a guy for a few months and then get bored. Would always be looking for someone better, someone more exciting, someone with more money or more status. She was never satisfied. By the time I started dating James, Dorothy had been through probably 10 or 12 boyfriends. None of them lasted more than a few months. She was getting frustrated. All her friends were getting engaged, getting married, and she was still bouncing from guy to guy, never finding anyone who measured up to whatever standard she had in her head. When I first told Dorothy about James, she seemed happy for me, asked to meet him, said she wanted to approve of the man her big sister was dating, so I brought James to a family dinner at our parents' house. That's when I first saw the look. The way Dorothy's eyes lit up when James walked in, the way she looked him up and down, the way she smiled at him. It wasn't a sisterly smile. It was something else, something predatory. During that dinner, Dorothy was all over James, sitting next to him even though I was on his other side, laughing too loud at everything he said, touching his arm constantly when she talked, asking him questions about his job, his hobbies, his plans for the future. She was interviewing him like she was the one dating him, not me. I thought she was just being enthusiastic, just being her usual outgoing self. My mother even commented later that Dorothy really seemed to like James, that she was so engaged in getting to know him. We all thought it was sweet. We all thought she was being a good sister. James told me on the drive home that Dorothy made him uncomfortable, that she was being too friendly, too touchy, that something felt off about the way she was looking at him. I laughed it off, said he was imagining things, that Dorothy was just like that with everyone, that she was warm and friendly and he needed to get used to it because she was going to be his sister-in-law someday. He didn't push it, just said okay and dropped the subject, but I could tell he wasn't convinced. After that dinner, Dorothy started coming around a lot. She had never visited my apartment much before, but suddenly she was dropping by all the time, always on evenings or weekends when she knew James would be there. She would dress up for these visits, full makeup, tight jeans, low-cut tops, hair done perfectly, to just stop by and say hi to my sister. She would always find excuses to talk to James, to ask his opinion on something, to get his help with something. She once brought over a broken lamp and asked if James could fix it. Another time she needed help moving a piece of furniture in her apartment and asked if James could come help. Always creating situations where she could be alone with him. James kept telling me it was weird, that Dorothy was hitting on him, that I needed to talk to her. But I refused to believe it. Dorothy was my sister, my best friend. She would never do that to me. I told James he was being paranoid, that not every woman who was friendly to him was hitting on him, that he needed to be nicer to Dorothy because she was important to me. I actually made him feel bad for being uncomfortable around her, made him doubt his own instincts. And that's exactly what Dorothy wanted. About a year into our relationship, James asked me to marry him. It was perfect, romantic. He took me to the park where we had our first date, got down on one knee, had this beautiful speech prepared about how he was my best friend, my partner, my future. The ring was simple, but perfect. I said yes before he even finished asking. I was so happy, so excited. I couldn't wait to start planning our wedding, to start our life together. I called Dorothy immediately to tell her. She was my sister. I wanted her to be one of the first to know. She answered the phone, and I blurted out, "I'm engaged! James proposed!" There was this pause, this long silence on the other end of the line. Then she said, "Oh, wow, that's great." But her voice was flat, empty, not excited at all. I asked if she was okay. She said she was just surprised, that it seemed fast, that we hadn't been dating that long, that maybe we should wait a bit longer to make sure. I told her I was sure, that I loved James, that I wanted to marry him. She said, okay, and that she had to go. She hung up quickly. I told myself she was just busy, just having a bad day, that she would be excited when it sank in. But Dorothy wasn't excited. Over the next few weeks, she started making comments, little digs. "Are you sure you're ready for marriage? Don't you want to date other people first? You're so young. Why rush? What if you change your mind in a few years? Marriage is hard, you know. Most marriages fail." She was constantly planting seeds of doubt, constantly trying to make me second-guess my decision. My parents noticed, asked me why Dorothy was being so negative. About a year into our relationship, James asked me to marry him. It was perfect, romantic. He took me to the park where we had our first date, got down on one knee, had this beautiful speech prepared about how I was his best friend, his partner, his future. The ring was simple but perfect. I said yes before he even finished asking. I was so happy, so excited. I couldn't wait to start planning our wedding, to start our life together. I called Dorothy immediately to tell her. She was my sister. I wanted her to be one of the first to know. She answered the phone and I blurted out, "I'm engaged! James proposed!" There was this pause, this long silence on the other end of the line. Then she said, "Oh, wow, that's great." But her voice was flat, empty, not excited at all. I asked if she was okay. She said she was just surprised, that it seemed fast, that we hadn't been dating that long, that maybe we should wait a bit longer to make sure. I told her I was sure, that I loved James, that I wanted to marry him. She said, okay, and that she had to go. She hung up quickly. I told myself she was just busy, just having a bad day, that she would be excited when it sank in. But Dorothy wasn't excited. Over the next few weeks, she started making comments, little digs. Are you sure you're ready for marriage? Don't you want to date other people first? You're so young. Why rush? What if you change your mind in a few years? Marriage is hard, you know. Most marriages fail. She was constantly planting seeds of doubt, constantly trying to make me second guess my decision. My parents noticed, asked me why Dorothy was being so negative about the engagement. I defended her, said she was just being protective, just looking out for me, just making sure I was making the right choice. James noticed too. He said Dorothy was sabotaging us, that she was trying to break us up. I told him he was crazy, that Dorothy would never do that, that she loved me, that she wanted me to be happy. But deep down, I was starting to wonder, starting to see patterns I had been ignoring, starting to realize that Dorothy's behavior wasn't normal sisterly concern. Then my mother got sick. She had been having chest pains for weeks. Finally went to the doctor. They found a blockage, said she needed surgery, heart surgery. It was serious, risky. There was a real chance she might not make it through. I was terrified. My mother was only 52 years old. She was too young for this, too healthy. It didn't seem real. The surgery was scheduled for a Tuesday in October. I took the day off work. James wanted to come with me to the hospital, but he couldn't get the day off. He was working a big construction job, and they needed him on site. He felt terrible about it, apologized over and over, but I understood. I told him I would be fine, that Dorothy was coming with me, that I wouldn't be alone. He made me promise to call me as soon as the surgery was over, as soon as I knew anything. I promised. That Tuesday morning, I picked Dorothy up at her apartment at 6 a.m. The surgery was scheduled for 8. We wanted to get to the hospital early, to see my mother before she went in, to be there when she woke up. The drive to the hospital was quiet. Dorothy seemed distant, distracted. I asked if she was okay. She said she was just worried about Mom. I held her hand, told her Mom would be fine, that she was strong, that she would get through this. Dorothy nodded, but didn't say anything. We got to the hospital around 6:38, went to my mother's room. She was awake, but groggy from the pre-surgery medications. She smiled when she saw us, reached for her hands, told us not to worry, told us not to worry, told us that she loved us, told us to take care of each other. I was crying. Dorothy was crying. We both hugged her, told her we loved her, told her we'd be right there when she woke up. They took her away around 7:45, wheeled her out on a gurney. She waved at us as she disappeared around the corner. And then Dorothy and I were alone in the waiting room. The surgery was supposed to take 3 to 4 hours. We settled in to wait. Around 8:30, Dorothy said she needed to go to the bathroom, said she'd be right back. I nodded, pulled out a magazine, tried to distract myself from thinking about my mother on an operating table. Dorothy was gone maybe 10 minutes. When she came back, she had her purse with her, said she had gotten some snacks from the vending machine, offered me a candy bar. I took it. We sat in silence for another hour. Around 9:30, Dorothy said she needed to make a phone call, said she had to call her boss and let them know she wouldn't be in today. I told her to use my phone since the waiting room had bad reception. She said her phone was fine. She would just step outside for a minute. She left the waiting room, was gone maybe 20 minutes this time. I didn't think anything of it. I was too worried about my mother to pay attention to what Dorothy was doing. What I didn't know was that Dorothy wasn't calling her boss. She was calling James from a payphone in the hospital lobby. And she was about to tell him the most devastating lie. James told me later what happened during that phone call. He was at the construction site, in the middle of working. His phone rang, and he saw it was Dorothy's number. He almost didn't answer, didn't want to deal with her, but he thought maybe something had happened with my mother. Maybe Dorothy was calling with news. So he answered. Dorothy was crying, hysterically, sobbing so hard she could barely get words out. James immediately panicked, thought something had gone wrong with the surgery, thought my mother had died. He asked what happened, if everything was okay, if he needed to come to the hospital.
But Dorothy wasn't crying about my mother. She said, "James, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but you deserve to know the truth." James asked what she was talking about. Dorothy took a shaky breath and said, "I saw her. I saw Nanny this morning. I wasn't going to say anything, but I can't keep this from you." James said his heart started pounding. He asked what she saw. Dorothy said, "I followed her this morning. I had a feeling something was wrong, the way she's been acting lately, so distant, so secretive. I followed her from her apartment. She didn't go to the hospital, James. She went to the Sunset Motel on Highway 9, and I saw her go into a room with two men. Two men, James." She was laughing, hanging all over them. "I watched them go inside together and close the door." James said his mind went blank. He couldn't process what Dorothy was saying. It didn't make sense. I was supposed to be at the hospital with Dorothy, waiting for our mother's surgery. He said, "That's impossible. She's at the hospital with you right now." Dorothy's voice got more frantic, more hysterical. She said, "No, James, I'm not at the hospital. I told her I would meet her there, but I followed her instead because I suspected something. I saw everything. I saw her with those men. I took pictures. I can show you. I'm so sorry. I know you love her, but you need to know who she really is." James said he felt sick. His head was spinning. He asked Dorothy why she was calling him instead of confronting me. Dorothy said, "Because I love my sister, but I love you too. You're going to be my brother-in-law. You're family. And family doesn't let family get hurt. You deserve better than this. You deserve someone who will be faithful to you, someone who won't cheat on you with multiple men while her mother is having surgery." The detail about the surgery was brilliant on Dorothy's part. Evil, but brilliant. She had included just enough truth to make the lie believable. She knew where I was supposed to be, knew what was happening with our mother, so she built her lie around those facts, made it seem like I had used my mother's surgery as a cover to sneak off with other men. It was calculated, vicious, designed to cause maximum damage. James said he told Dorothy he had to go, that he needed to process this. Dorothy said she understood, that she was there for him if he needed anything, that she was sorry to be the one to tell him, that she hoped he would make the right decision. Then she hung up. James stood there on the construction site in shock. His co-workers asked if he was okay. He said he wasn't feeling well, that he needed to leave. His boss gave him the rest of the day off. James got in his truck and just drove. He didn't know where to go, didn't know what to do. Part of him thought Dorothy must be lying, must be making it up. But why would she lie about something like that? She was my sister. She loved me. Why would she fabricate such a horrible story?
But the more James thought about it, the less it made sense. He knew me, knew I wouldn't cheat, knew I loved him, knew I was at the hospital with Dorothy, waiting for my mother's surgery. He decided to call the hospital, to ask for me, to confirm I was actually there, to prove Dorothy was lying. He called the hospital main line. asked to be connected to the surgical waiting room. A nurse answered. James asked if there was a woman named Nanny waiting there. The nurse said she couldn't give out information about people in the waiting room. He explained that his girlfriend's mother was having surgery and he was trying to reach her, that it was an emergency. The nurse hesitated, but then said yes, there was someone by that name in the waiting room. Did he want her to give me a message? James was so relieved he almost cried. I was at the hospital, just like I was supposed to be. Dorothy had lied. She had made the whole thing up. But why? Why would she do something so cruel? Then it hit him. Dorothy wanted him for herself, had wanted him from the beginning. And when he proposed to me, when it became clear he was never going to be interested in her, she decided to destroy our relationship. If she couldn't have him, she would make sure I couldn't either. James told the nurse no message. He would come to the hospital himself. He got back in his truck and drove straight there. He was furious. Furious at Dorothy for lying. Furious at himself for even momentarily believing her. Furious that she would use our mother's surgery as part of her sick scheme. He was going to confront her. He was going to expose her. He was going to make sure everyone knew what she had tried to do. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, I had no idea any of this was happening. Dorothy came back from her phone call and sat down next to me. She was quiet, had this strange look on her face, kind of satisfied, kind of smug. I asked if everything was okay with her boss. She said yes, everything was fine. We went back to waiting in silence. Around 10:15, James walked into the waiting room. I was shocked to see him. I thought he was at work. I stood up and went to hug him, asked what he was doing here. He hugged me tight, said he had gotten the day off after all, that he wanted to be here for me, for my mother. I was so happy he was there, so grateful. I pulled him over to sit with Dorothy and me. James looked at Dorothy. His face was hard, cold. He said, "Dorothy, can I talk to you privately for a minute?" Dorothy's face went pale. She stammered something about not wanting to leave me alone. James said it would just take a minute, that it was important. I told them to go ahead, that I would be fine, that I wasn't going anywhere. James and Dorothy walked out into the hallway. I could see them through the glass windows of the waiting room. James was talking. Dorothy was shaking her head. Then her face crumpled and she started crying. James wasn't backing down. He kept talking, kept gesturing, kept pointing at her. Dorothy was sobbing now, trying to walk away. James followed her, blocked her path, demanded she stay and listen.
I had no idea what was happening. Thought maybe James was upset about something Dorothy had said about our engagement. Thought maybe they were having an argument about the wedding. I almost went out there, but then a doctor appeared. The surgeon. He was smiling. He said the surgery had gone well. My mother was in recovery. She was stable. She was going to be okay. I burst into tears, relief flooding through me. My mother was okay. She had made it through. The doctor said I could see her in about an hour once she was more awake. I thanked him over and over. Then I remembered James and Dorothy were out in the hall. I went out to tell them the good news. They were still in the hallway. Dorothy was crying hysterically. James looked furious. I ran up to them and said, "Mom's okay. The surgery went well. She's going to be fine." James immediately hugged me, said he was so happy, so relieved. Dorothy just stood there, crying, not saying anything. I asked what was wrong, why she was so upset. She should be happy. Mom was okay. James looked at me and said, "We need to talk. All three of us. But not here, not now. Your mother needs you. We'll deal with this later." I asked what he was talking about, what we needed to deal with. He said Dorothy has something she needs to tell you, something she needs to confess. But right now, you need to focus on your mom. Dorothy can wait. Dorothy looked terrified. She tried to say something, but James cut her off. He said, "Not another word. You've said enough today. We're going to sit here and wait to see her mother, and then we're all going to have a very long conversation about truth and lies and consequences." I was so confused. But my mother was awake and asking for me, so I pushed aside my confusion and went to see her, held her hand, told her I loved her, stayed by her bedside for the next few hours. James stayed too. Dorothy disappeared at some point, just left without saying goodbye. I thought it was strange, but I was too focused on my mother to worry about it. It wasn't until we left the hospital that evening that James told me what Dorothy had done. We were in his truck, driving back to my apartment. He pulled over into a parking lot, turned off the engine, turned to face me, and told me about Dorothy's phone call, about her claim that she saw me at a motel with two men, about how she had tried to convince him I was cheating, about how she had wanted to destroy our relationship. I sat there in shock. My sister, my best friend, had tried to destroy my relationship with the man I loved, had fabricated a lie about me cheating, had called James crying with this elaborate story designed to make him think I was unfaithful, while our mother was in surgery, while I was in the hospital waiting room terrified. Dorothy had been plotting against me. I didn't want to believe it. I asked James if he was sure, if maybe there was a misunderstanding. He said, no, there was no misunderstanding. Dorothy had been very clear, very detailed. She had described the motel, the men, what I was supposedly wearing. She had even claimed to have photos. It was all calculated, all designed to destroy us. I started crying, not just because Dorothy had betrayed me, but because I finally understood. All those times James said Dorothy was hitting on him, all those times he said he made him uncomfortable, all those times he tried to warn me and I defended her, he had been right all along. And I had dismissed him, had made him feel like he was imagining things, had prioritized my sister over my boyfriend. And she had been plotting against me the entire time. James held me while I cried, said he didn't blame me for not seeing it, said family betrayal is the hardest kind to spot, because you don't want to believe someone you love could hurt you like that. He said the important thing was that we knew now, that we could deal with it, that we could decide together how to handle Dorothy. I wanted to confront her immediately, wanted to call her and scream at her, wanted to tell my parents what she had done. But James had a different idea. He said we should plan this carefully, that Dorothy had tried to destroy us with a lie, so we should destroy her credibility with the truth. We should expose her in a way that left no doubt about what she had done, in a way that made sure everyone knew exactly who she was. Over the next few days, we planned our revenge. James had kept Dorothy's voicemail from that morning. He had saved it. She had left a message after he hung up on her, a message where she repeated her lies about seeing me at a motel, about she had photos, about how she was sorry to be the one to tell him, but he deserved to know. Her voice was on that recording. Her lies were documented. That was our evidence. We decided to expose Dorothy at a family dinner. My parents were having everyone over that Sunday to celebrate my mother's successful surgery, her recovery. Dorothy would be there. So would my aunt and uncle, my cousins. It would be the perfect audience. We would play Dorothy's voicemail for everyone to hear, would show them exactly what she had tried to do, would let her lies speak for themselves. That Sunday came. My mother was home from the hospital, feeling much better. Still weak, but recovering well. She was so happy to have the family together, to have survived her surgery, to be celebrating life. She had no idea what was about to happen. We had dinner first. Roast chicken, my mother's famous potato salad. Everything felt normal. We talked about Mom's surgery, about her recovery, about how grateful we all were. Dorothy barely ate, barely spoke, just pushed food around her plate and avoided eye contact with everyone. After dinner, my father suggested we all move to the living room for coffee and dessert. Everyone settled in, my mother on the couch looking happy and relaxed, my father in his armchair, my aunt and uncle on the love seat, my cousins on the floor. Dorothy tried to sit as far from me and James as possible, squeezed herself into the corner of the room. I stood up, said I had something I wanted to say, something important. Everyone looked at me. My mother smiled, probably thought I was going to make a toast to her recovery. My father turned down the TV. Everyone got quiet, waiting. I said, before we celebrate Mom's recovery, there's something everyone needs to know. Something that happened the day of her surgery. Something that involves Dorothy. Dorothy's face went white. She stood up quickly, said, I don't feel well. I think I should go. James blocked the doorway, said, sit down, Dorothy. You're not going anywhere until everyone hears what you did. My mother looked confused, asked what was going on. I said, the day of your surgery, while I was in the hospital waiting room, terrified that you might die, Dorothy made a phone call. She called James. She told him she had seen me at a motel with two men. She told him I was cheating on him. She tried to destroy our relationship with a lie. The room erupted. My mother gasped. My father stood up. My aunt said, what? Dorothy started crying, shaking her head, saying, no, that's not what happened, that I was twisting things, that it was a misunderstanding. James pulled out his phone, said, there's no misunderstanding. I have the voicemail you left me that morning. Should I play it for everyone so they can hear exactly what you said? Exactly how you tried to destroy Nanny with your lies? Dorothy lunged for the phone, tried to grab it from James. My father grabbed her arm, told her to stop, told her to sit down. Dorothy collapsed back onto her chair sobbing, saying she was sorry. She didn't mean it. She wasn't thinking clearly. She was confused. James played the voicemail. Dorothy's voice filled the room, crying, hysterical, telling James she had seen me at a motel with two men, that she had followed me, that she had photos, that she was sorry but he deserved to know, that I was cheating on him while my mother was having heart surgery. The silence after the voicemail ended was deafening. My mother was crying. My father looked like he wanted to hit something. My aunt and uncle were staring at Dorothy with disgust. My cousins looked shocked. And Dorothy was sobbing, curled up in her chair, trying to disappear. My mother spoke first.
Her voice was shaking. She said, "Dorothy, how could you? Your sister was there for me, was terrified I might die. And you used that to try to destroy her relationship? What is wrong with you?" Dorothy tried to speak through her sobs. She said, I thought James deserves better. She doesn't appreciate him. I could make him happier. That's when it all came out. The truth Dorothy had been hiding. She was in love with James, had been since the first time she met him. She thought if she could break us up, James would turn to her, would see that she was better for him, would choose her instead. My father was furious, told Dorothy to get out, to leave his house, that he didn't want to look at her. My mother was crying harder now, saying she didn't raise her daughter to be like this, to be so cruel, so manipulative. My aunt said she was ashamed, that this was beyond anything she could have imagined. Dorothy begged them to understand, said she was desperate, that she was tired of being alone, that she saw how happy I was and she wanted that too, that she didn't think it would hurt anyone because she thought James would eventually see I wasn't right for him anyway. She was delusional, justifying her betrayal with twisted logic that made sense to no one but her. James spoke up, said, "Dorothy, I was never interested in you. Not for 1 second. Every time you flirted with me, it made me uncomfortable. Every time you tried to get me alone, I avoided you. I love Nanny. I've only ever loved Nanny. Nothing you could have done would have changed that. All you've done is destroy your relationship with your sister and your family." Dorothy looked at him with such hatred, such bitter resentment. She said, "You could have had me. I'm prettier than her, more fun than her, better than her in every way. But you too stupid to see it." That comment was the final straw for my father. He physically pulled Dorothy up from her chair, dragged her to the door, told her to leave and not come back until she could apologize properly, until she could take responsibility for what she had done. Dorothy left in tears, drove away screeching her tires. My mother collapsed back on the couch sobbing, saying she couldn't believe her own daughter would do something so terrible. My father held her, told her it wasn't her fault, that Dorothy made her own choices, that she would have to live with the consequences. The rest of that evening was somber. The celebration we had planned for my mother's recovery was ruined. Everyone left early, went home in shock. My mother made me promise I would be okay, that I wouldn't let Dorothy's actions destroy my happiness. I promised, hugged her tight, thanked her for supporting me.
The aftermath was brutal. Dorothy called me dozens of times over the next few days, left voicemails crying and apologizing, saying she didn't know what came over her, that she had made a terrible mistake, that she hoped I could forgive her. I didn't respond, didn't answer, didn't acknowledge her attempts to reach me. She showed up at my apartment one night, banged on the door, begged me to let her in, to talk to her, to give her a chance to explain. James was there, told her through the door to leave or we would call the police. She finally left, but not before screaming that she hated me, that I had ruined her life, that everything was my fault, her true colors showing through the fake remorse. My parents tried to mediate, tried to get us to reconcile. My mother especially felt guilty, felt like she had failed as a parent,
that somehow Dorothy's behavior was her fault. I told her it wasn't, that Dorothy was an adult who made her own choices, that this wasn't about parenting. This was about Dorothy's jealousy and entitlement and willingness to destroy someone she claimed to love. I told my parents I needed time, that I couldn't just forgive what Dorothy had done. She hadn't just tried to break up my relationship. She had tried to make James think I was a cheater, had tried to destroy my character, my reputation, had used our mother's surgery, one of the most terrifying days of my life, as cover for her scheme. That wasn't a mistake. That was calculated cruelty. My parents understood, said they would support whatever decision I made, that they loved us both, but they knew Dorothy was wrong, that she needed to face real consequences for her actions. My father was particularly angry. He had always been protective of me. The thought that his younger daughter had tried to hurt his older daughter in such a way infuriated him. Dorothy was essentially cut off from the family for a while, wasn't invited to family dinners, wasn't included in holiday plans. My parents still talked to her, still loved her, but they made it clear her behavior was unacceptable, that she had broken trust that would take years to rebuild, if it could be rebuilt at all. James and I got married 6 months later. It was a small wedding, just close family and friends. Dorothy was not invited. She sent a card, said she was sorry, said she hoped I would be happy, said she understood why she wasn't welcome. The card went in the trash. I didn't need her empty words. I needed her to understand the magnitude of what she had done, and I wasn't sure she ever would. Years passed. James and I built a beautiful life together. We had 2 children, bought a house. He started his own construction company like he always dreamed. I eventually left the law firm and started working for him, doing the books and managing the office. We were happy, really happy. The kind of happy that comes from surviving something difficult together and coming out stronger. Dorothy's life went in a different direction. She never found the relationship she was looking for. Dated men here and there, but nothing serious, nothing that lasted. She moved to a different city about a year after my wedding, said she needed a fresh start, needed to get away from the family drama. But really, I think she couldn't handle seeing James and me happy together, couldn't handle being confronted with the life she had tried to destroy. My mother would give me updates sometimes. Dorothy had a new job. Dorothy was dating someone. Dorothy was thinking about moving again. I would listen politely, but I really didn't care. The sister I had known was gone. The person who had lied about me, who had tried to destroy my relationship, who had shown such cruelty, that wasn't someone I wanted in my life. About 5 years after my wedding, Dorothy reached out directly. She sent me a long letter, pages and pages of apologies and explanations. She said she had been in therapy, had been working on herself, had come to understand how toxic her jealousy and entitlement had been, how she had destroyed our relationship with her own actions, how she didn't expect forgiveness but wanted me to know she was genuinely sorry. I read the letter once and put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to respond, wasn't ready to open that door again. James said it was my decision, that he would support whatever I chose, that if I wanted to try to rebuild with Dorothy, he wouldn't stand in the way. But if I wanted to keep her out of our lives, he understood that too. I chose to keep her at a distance. Sent a short response saying I appreciated the apology, but needed more time, that what she had done had broken something fundamental, and I wasn't sure it could be fixed. Dorothy wrote back saying she understood, that she would wait, that whenever I was ready, if I was ever ready, she would be there. More years passed. My children grew up never really knowing their Aunt Dorothy. They knew she existed, knew there had been some kind of falling out, but I never told them the details. Never wanted to poison them against her. Just said sometimes families have complicated relationships and we needed space from each other. My mother never gave up hoping Dorothy and I would reconcile. On her deathbed 15 years ago, she held both our hands and begged us to forgive each other, to not let her death be another thing that kept us apart. I promised I would try. Dorothy promised too. We were both crying, both grieving the loss of our mother, but even that shared grief didn't really bridge the gap between us. After my mother died, Dorothy and I started talking occasionally, brief phone calls on birthdays and holidays, polite but distant. We could never get back what we had before. The trust was gone. The closeness was gone. We were sisters by blood, but strangers in every way that mattered. Dorothy is 69 now, still single, retired, lives alone. My father says she's lonely, that she regrets how her life turned out, that she wishes she could go back and make different choices. But you can't go back. You can only live with the consequences of what you've done. I'm 71 now. James and I just celebrated our 45th anniversary. We have 2 grown children and 5 grandchildren. We have a good life. A life that Dorothy tried to destroy when we were young. A life that might not have existed if James hadn't trusted his instincts. If he had believed Dorothy's lie instead of calling the hospital to verify where I was. If he had not confronted her and exposed her. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if Dorothy had succeeded. If James had believed her lie and broken up with me, I probably would have been devastated. Would have tried to convince him I didn't cheat. But would he have believed me? Or would Dorothy's detailed lie have been more convincing than my truth? Would I have lost the love of my life because of my sister's jealousy?
The thought still makes me angry, even after all these years. Dorothy didn't just try to hurt me. She tried to destroy my entire future, tried to take away my chance at happiness because she wanted it for herself. That's not love. That's not family. That's pure selfishness. People have asked me over the years if I regret how we handled it, if publicly exposing Dorothy at that family dinner was too harsh, if we should have handled it privately. My answer is always no. Dorothy had tried to destroy me with a lie told in secret. She deserved to be exposed publicly. She deserved to have everyone she loved know exactly what she had done. The public exposure had consequences beyond just our relationship. Dorothy's reputation in our family was destroyed. Our extended family never looked at her the same way. They couldn't trust her, couldn't believe anything she said, couldn't forget that she had been capable of such calculated cruelty. That was her burden to carry. That was the consequence of her actions. Some family members thought we were too hard on her, thought we should have forgiven and moved on, thought family was supposed to stick together no matter what. But I don't believe that. I don't believe blood relationship means you have to tolerate betrayal. Dorothy made her choice. I made mine. She chose to try to destroy my relationship. I chose to protect myself and my future. James never regretted how we handled it either. He said Dorothy needed to face real consequences, needed to understand that actions have repercussions, that you can't just apologize and expect everything to go back to normal, that some betrayals are so deep they change relationships permanently. Looking back now from the perspective of 45 years, I can see how young we all were. Dorothy was 24.
desperate for love, jealous of what I had. Still, being young doesn't excuse what she did. Plenty of young people feel jealous without fabricating elaborate lies to destroy their siblings' relationships. Dorothy made a conscious choice to hurt me, to try to take what was mine. That choice defined who she was. I've learned a lot from this experience. I learned that family doesn't automatically mean loyalty, that blood relationships can be just as toxic as any other relationship, that you have to protect yourself even from people you love, that trust once broken is almost impossible to rebuild. I also learned the importance of trusting your partner. James told me repeatedly that Dorothy made him uncomfortable, that she was hitting on him, that something was wrong. I dismissed his concerns, defended Dorothy, made him doubt his own instincts. If I had listened to him earlier, maybe we could have stopped Dorothy before she escalated. Maybe we could have set boundaries that protected our relationship. My advice to anyone in a similar situation is simple. Listen when your partner tells you someone makes them uncomfortable. Don't dismiss their concerns. Don't defend inappropriate behavior from family members. Set clear boundaries and enforce them. Because if you don't, the situation will escalate. And by the time you realize how serious it is, the damage might already be done. Also, trust your instincts. If something feels off about someone's behavior, it probably is. Don't make excuses for people. Don't try to explain away red flags. Pay attention to patterns. Dorothy had been showing signs of obsession with James from the beginning. I just didn't want to see them. Dorothy and I will probably never be close again. Too much has happened. Too much time has passed. Too much damage has been done. We're civil now. We can be in the same room at family events without it being terrible, but we'll never be the sisters we were before. That relationship died the day she called James with her lie, and it's never coming back. Sometimes I wonder if Dorothy truly understands what she destroyed, not just our relationship, but her own happiness. She was so focused on what I had that she couldn't build her own life. She was so consumed with jealousy that she pushed away everyone who loved her. She ended up alone, not because the world was unfair, but because she made choices that isolated her. That's the real tragedy of Dorothy's story. She could have had a good life, could have found her own partner, built her own happiness. But she was too busy trying to steal mine. And in the process, she lost everything that mattered. Her sister, her family's trust, her self-respect, all for a man who was never interested in her and never would be. James and I survived Dorothy's attempt to destroy us. We built a beautiful life together, raised wonderful children, created memories and traditions and a love that has lasted 45 years. Dorothy can't take that away from us. Her lie failed, her scheme was exposed, and we won. Not because we're better than her, but because love built on truth is stronger than schemes built on lies. So that's my story. That's how my sister tried to steal my boyfriend with the cruelest lie imaginable. How she fabricated a story about me cheating to try to destroy our relationship. How she used my mother's surgery as cover for her betrayal. And how we exposed her in front of our entire family, ensuring everyone knew exactly what she had done. If someone you trust betrays you like this, know that you have every right to protect yourself. You don't owe forgiveness to people who deliberately try to hurt you.
You don't have to maintain relationships with people who prove they're toxic. Family is important, but your own well-being is more important. And sometimes cutting toxic people out of your life, even if they're family, is the healthiest thing you can do. Dorothy chose jealousy over love, chose lies over truth, chose destruction over support. Those were her choices. The consequences were hers to bear, and 45 years later, I still don't regret exposing her. I still don't regret the boundaries I set. I still don't regret choosing my own happiness over family obligation. Because at the end of the day, I got to build a life with the man I love. I got 45 years of happiness that Dorothy tried to steal from me. I got children and grandchildren and memories that she wanted to prevent. I won, and she lost. Not because I did anything to her, but because her own actions destroyed her relationships and her reputation. That's what happens when you choose betrayal, when you choose lies, when you choose to hurt people you claim to love. You end up alone. You end up with regrets. You end up looking back on your life and realizing you destroyed your own happiness. Hit subscribe if you want to hear more true stories like this one.